Her mind goes crazy when the silence in the room feels louder than any sound she has ever heard, and it is in that silence that her thoughts start their relentless march, each one heavier than the last. She remembers the promises once whispered softly under the night sky, promises that now feel like cruel echoes in a hollow chamber, bouncing endlessly without resolution. Every memory becomes a shadow, every face a flicker of someone she cannot reach, and the longing presses on her chest like a weight she cannot lift. She questions herself in ways that leave her dizzy, asking if she is enough, if she could have done more, if love is ever truly meant to stay. Her mind races with the conversations she never had, the words she left unsaid, the apologies she never offered, and she feels each omission like a tiny fracture in her heart. Time seems both too fast and too slow, dragging her through moments she wishes she could forget while mocking her with reminders she cannot escape. She imagines all the possible lives she could have led, all the alternate versions of herself that might have been stronger, braver, better loved, and each possibility becomes a cruel torment because they are not real. Her emotions collide within her, a storm she cannot predict, tearing at the edges of her reason, leaving her feeling untethered. The joy she once felt in simple moments, sunlight through a window, the smell of rain on the streets, the sound of laughter, feels distant, almost unreachable, as though those sensations belong to someone else, a version of her that has been left behind in the rubble of heartbreak. Fear creeps in quietly, like a shadow beneath her bed, telling her she will never be whole again, that she is destined to wander in this mental labyrinth without a map, that she is trapped by the very thoughts she cannot stop. Every small decision becomes monumental. Even the act of breathing feels heavy, weighted with the consequences of her own mind's imaginings. She feels the isolation intensely, as if no one could ever understand the tempest that rages inside her, the way her own heart turns against her in moments of weakness, how she laughs to cover the cracks, but in the quiet, all is revealed. She searches for relief, something to soothe the whirlpool of ideas, but the world outside her skull seems indifferent to her torment, moving forward while she is suspended in the endless cycle of self-doubt. And still, even in this chaos, there is a spark of recognition that the mind's madness is a reflection of her intensity, her capacity to feel, to care, to dream beyond the boundaries imposed by ordinary days, that she is alive in ways that others may never truly see. Even if that life feels perilous from within, even if her own thoughts feel like enemies more than friends, even if her heart aches for a calm it cannot yet trust to arrive, even if every heartbeat reminds her of fragility and resilience intertwined in a way that is uniquely her own, the tempest is hers, and she knows that somewhere in this storm of madness, the possibility of herself, raw and unbroken, persists. Even if she cannot reach it, even if it hides behind the thorns of her own making, even if it laughs at her desperate search, even if it waits for her to fall apart in order to rebuild, even if her mind goes crazy in the spaces where the world demands sanity, even if the silence itself becomes a cruel mirror reflecting the parts of her she hides, the parts of her that ache for connection, for understanding, for release, for peace that seems so distant that it might never touch her. And yet, despite it all, there is a pulse that refuses to stop, a rhythm of existence that cannot be silenced, a whisper of possibility that threads through the madness, and it keeps her alive, keeps her thinking, keeps her wondering, keeps her alive in the moments when living feels impossible, keeps her heart beating in defiance of the chaos, and keeps her mind moving even when it feels like it might shatter entirely, like a fragile glass pressed against the storm, trembling but still present, still feeling, still breathing in the chaos, still imagining what might be possible if only she could calm the storm. And even as the madness stretches into infinity, she does not vanish, she endures, she persists, she exists, even if her own mind is a labyrinth of pain, of longing, of broken dreams and flickering hope, a place where every thought is a battle, where every memory is a wound, where every imagined future is a question she cannot answer, and yet she keeps moving through it. Because that is what living is, feeling everything, even when it hurts, even when it terrifies her, even when her mind goes crazy. She feels trapped in her own thoughts, as if the walls of her mind are closing in, tightening around her like invisible chains that nobody else can see, and each chain carries the weight of countless doubts, fears, and insecurities she has never voiced. It is not the world outside that confines her. The streets, the sky, the people moving past her seem free and untouchable, but inside, her mind has built a labyrinth of its own design, walls painted with memories she cannot erase and reflections of herself she barely recognizes. Every thought becomes a test, every memory a mirror she cannot look away from. And she wonders if she will ever escape this inner prison, if the very architecture of her own consciousness has been set against her. She turns over every moment, every glance, every word spoken to her or by her, dissecting each as if the answers lie buried in the fragments of a puzzle she cannot complete, and the frustration builds like a storm she cannot calm, like waves crashing against the cliffs of her understanding, until both her body and mind tremble under the weight of it all. She tries to speak, but the words choke in her throat, tangled in the threads of overthinking that wrap themselves around her voice before it can reach the air. Her emotions spiral into one another, grief colliding with anger, hope battered by fear, longing tempered by regret, and she wonders if anyone could ever truly understand the hurricane that lives inside her skull. She envies those who seem to move through life with ease, who laugh without caution, who think without chains, and the comparison burns like a silent accusation, a reminder that her mind, in its own brilliance, is also its most merciless captor. The nights are the hardest, when the world outside is quiet, and the darkness amplifies every thought, every memory, every imagined failure, and sleep feels both like a reprieve she cannot trust and a prison where her mind continues its relentless cycles. She writes lists of what she could do, of what she must do, of what she should have done, and yet each list becomes another set of shackles, each line a reminder of her perceived shortcomings. And she cannot help but feel that she is failing not only herself, but everyone she has ever loved. There is a constant tug of war between her desire for peace and the fascination her mind holds with the chaos it creates, a duality that leaves her both terrified and addicted to the intensity of her own thoughts. When she catches glimpses of clarity, moments when her mind feels almost still, she clings to them desperately, as if they are fragile fragments of air in a storm, and she wonders how something so fleeting could feel so vital. And yet, even amidst the turmoil, there are sparks of recognition, small whispers that remind her she is still present, that she has not been consumed entirely by the maze of her own making, that the very act of thinking, of feeling, of questioning is proof of a life that refuses to be dulled. She is aware of the paradox, that the same mind that tortures her is also the one that dreams, that loves, that imagines, that creates moments of beauty even when it is trapped in despair. And so she continues, walking the tightrope between madness and clarity, listening to the echo of her own heartbeat, learning in fragmented ways how to coexist with herself, understanding that freedom may not come as a sudden release, but as a series of small acts of courage, of letting go, of breathing when it feels impossible, and even if the walls of her mind seem unyielding. She knows, in quiet moments between the storms, that she is capable of finding paths through the labyrinth, paths lined with her own resilience, paths that whisper, if she listens closely, that she is more than the sum of her chaos, more than the prison of her thoughts, and that, even in the darkest corners of her mind, there exists the possibility of light, the possibility of gentleness, the possibility that she may yet step beyond the walls that her own mind has built and discover a space where her thoughts do not terrify her, where she can breathe freely, and where the storm inside can finally, if only slowly, begin to calm. Her sense of reality bends under the pressure of what ifs and maybes, leaving her unsure of who she is and what she truly wants, as though the ground beneath her feet has shifted and every familiar landmark has dissolved into a haze of uncertainty. She wakes each day questioning the solidity of the world, wondering if the people she trusts are as constant as she imagines, or, if they too, are shadows that may disappear when she reaches for them. Her thoughts twist her perception, turning ordinary moments into riddles she cannot solve. A simple conversation becomes a labyrinth of meaning. A smile a question mark, a silence a warning. She clings to fragments of certainty, moments when her mind seems to pause and allow her a glimpse of stability, but even these fragments are fragile, easily shattered by the slightest memory or imagined failure. She feels herself slipping between the layers of who she is expected to be, who she wants to be, and who she fears she truly is, and the collision of these selves leaves her dizzy, disoriented, and longing for something permanent in a world that feels fleeting. The boundaries between past, present, and future blur. Memories bleed into imagined scenarios, and imagined scenarios feel as real, as pressing, as urgent as the life she is living now. She wonders if she is alone in feeling this way, if everyone else is moving through life with a clearer lens, if her mind is simply too sensitive, too aware, too alive, to navigate the ordinary rhythms of human existence without cracking. Each decision becomes monumental because every choice seems to ripple across multiple realities, each possibility spinning out of control in her imagination, until she can barely remember what she truly wanted in the first place. Her mind questions her motives, second, guesses her feelings, and doubts the sincerity of her own heart, making even the simplest gestures feel loaded with meaning she cannot trust. She drifts through the day in a haze of analysis, replaying conversations, interpreting gestures, and reading signs that may not exist, all the while feeling that any misstep could unravel the tenuous hold she has on herself. Sleep brings no relief, dreams entangle with reality, and she awakens more disoriented, caught between the echo of imagined futures and the residue of memories she cannot forget. In these moments, the world itself seems like a test of endurance, each sound, each face, each touch magnified and refracted through the prism of her anxious thoughts, leaving her questioning the very fabric of existence. Yet, amidst this turmoil, there is a strange, quiet clarity that occasionally breaks through, a whisper that reminds her she is capable of navigating this confusion, that her mind, though tangled, is also vibrant, alive, and perceptive in ways that are rare and extraordinary. She senses that the bending of reality is both her curse and her gift, that the same mind which confuses her, isolates her, and overwhelms her is also the mind that can imagine beauty, that can empathize with depths others might never reach, that can create worlds inside her skull where she is free to explore, feel, and understand. And so she moves forward, carefully, cautiously, learning to live with the instability of her perception, to accept the uncertainty as part of the landscape she inhabits, to find balance in the chaos, to seek grounding in fleeting moments, and to trust, however tentatively, that even if reality bends and twists around her, she has the strength, the patience, and the insight to navigate it. Every question she asks, every doubt she feels, is a testament to her awareness, a reflection of a mind that refuses to settle for superficial understanding, a mind that craves depth, meaning, and truth in a world that so often offers none. And though the bending of reality can be terrifying, exhausting, and lonely, it also offers the possibility of insight, of perception that penetrates beyond ordinary sight, of understanding the subtle undercurrents that others miss. And in this paradox, she learns that her uncertainty is not weakness, but a kind of power, a way to feel the world with a clarity and intensity that is uniquely hers, a lens that allows her to see, to question, to endure, to imagine, and to continue walking, even when the path is invisible, even when the ground beneath her seems unsteady, even when the certainty she longs for may never come, because the very act of moving forward, of inhabiting her mind fully, of embracing the complexity of who she is itself an act of courage, an affirmation that she is alive, aware, and capable of facing the ever-shifting tides of what, ifs and maybes, a mind that bends but does not break, a spirit that questions but does not vanish, a self that exists fully and painfully in the beautiful, chaotic, twisting reality that is hers alone. She clings to fleeting moments of clarity, but they are fragile, disappearing as quickly as they arrive, leaving her unmoored in the vast ocean of her own thoughts. These moments are like tiny lanterns flickering in a windstorm, casting light on paths she longs to follow but cannot fully grasp, illuminating possibilities that vanish before she can reach them. In these brief flashes, she glimpses herself unburdened, strong, capable, and free from the relentless pull of doubt and anxiety that defines most of her days. She holds onto them desperately, as if grasping them tightly could make them permanent, could anchor her in a reality that feels steady, could provide respite from the chaos that churns inside her. Yet, every attempt to extend these moments feels futile, and their disappearance leaves a hollowness that she carries silently, a quiet ache that no one sees, but that she feels with every heartbeat. She marvels at their intensity, their beauty, and their ability to remind her of what life could be like, if her mind would allow it. But she also fears them because they highlight the contrast between who she is and who she longs to be, between the calm she desires and the storm she inhabits. The clarity arrives unexpectedly, often in the quietest moments. A breath of air in the stillness, a word spoken by a stranger, a memory resurfacing with surprising gentleness, and it brings a rare, piercing sense of peace. Yet this peace is temporary, ephemeral, like sand slipping through her fingers, and when it disappears, she feels the weight of reality return with even greater force, pressing her into herself, reminding her of the walls she has built and the chains that bind her. She wonders if she is doomed to live between these flashes, constantly chasing an elusive equilibrium, constantly seeking a balance that retreats whenever she approaches. She struggles to understand whether the clarity is a promise, a tease, or a cruel trick plagued by her own mind, and this uncertainty becomes another layer of the labyrinth she must navigate. Even as these moments vanish, however, they leave traces, faint footprints of possibility that remind her she is not entirely lost, that she has glimpsed a version of herself that is capable of peace, happiness, and understanding, even if it is fleeting. She begins to see that these fragments of clarity, though temporary, are teaching her to endure, to notice, to value the small spaces where her mind allows her to breathe, to be, and to feel unafraid. They are reminders that she can survive the chaos, that even the smallest light can guide her through darkness, that the storm within her is not absolute, and that she has within her the capacity to grasp at moments of serenity, however brief, and let them fortify her spirit. With each flash, she learns to recognize the signs, to anticipate them, and to cherish them, knowing that they are precious gifts in a mind that so often refuses to rest. And even when they fade, she carries their memory like a secret talisman, a whisper of hope that reminds her that clarity is possible, that peace exists, that she is not defined solely by the madness that invades her thoughts, and that even amidst the swirling uncertainty, there are fragments of herself that remain untouched, intact, and waiting for her to return to them, waiting for her to notice that in the fleeting, ephemeral moments of clarity lies the quiet strength, to keep moving forward, to keep believing, to keep hoping, to keep living, even when the mind threatens to pull her under, even when the world seems too heavy, even when the storm rages endlessly, because those brief lights are proof that she is still present, still aware, still capable of feeling, still capable of seeing, and still capable of imagining a life beyond the chaos that surrounds her. She clings to fleeting moments of clarity, but they are fragile, disappearing as quickly as they arrive, leaving her unmoored in the vast ocean of her own thoughts. These moments are like tiny lanterns flickering in a windstorm, casting light on paths she longs to follow but cannot fully grasp, illuminating possibilities that vanish before she can reach them. In these brief flashes, she glimpses herself unburdened, strong, capable, and free from the relentless pull of doubt and anxiety that defines most of her days. She holds on to them desperately, as if grasping them tightly could make them permanent, could anchor her in a reality that feels steady, could provide respite from the chaos that churns inside her. Yet every attempt to extend these moments feels futile, and their disappearance leaves a hollowness that she carries silently, a quiet ache that no one sees but that she feels with every heartbeat. She marvels at their intensity, their beauty, and their ability to remind her of what life could be like if her mind would allow it. But she also fears them, because they highlight the contrast between who she is and who she longs to be, between the calm she desires and the storm she inhabits. The clarity arrives unexpectedly, often in the quietest moments. A breath of air in the stillness, a word spoken by a stranger, a memory resurfacing with surprising gentleness, and it brings a rare, piercing sense of peace. Yet this peace is temporary, ephemeral, like sand slipping through her fingers, and when it disappears, she feels the weight of reality return with even greater force, pressing her into herself, reminding her of the walls she has built and the chains that bind her. She wonders if she is doomed to live between these flashes, constantly chasing an elusive equilibrium, constantly seeking a balance that retreats whenever she approaches. She struggles to understand whether the clarity is a promise, a tease, or a cruel trick played by her own mind, and this uncertainty becomes another layer of the labyrinth she must navigate. Even as these moments vanish, however, they leave traces, faint footprints of possibility that remind her she is not entirely lost, that she has glimpsed a version of herself that is capable of peace, happiness, and understanding, even if it is fleeting. She begins to see that these fragments of clarity, though temporary, are teaching her to endure, to notice, to value the small space